We, hello? 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 Oh, okay. Hello. We have adjourned from closed session. I'd like to entertain a motion to set the county manager's salary at $226,011. At $11, sorry. $226,011.
I'll move.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Hill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
And the motion is approved 4-1 with Commissioner Howerton voting nay. I will now welcome everyone to the Monday, July 8th, 2019 meeting of the Durham County Board of Commissioners. I will now share the public charge. The Board of Commissioners asks its members and citizens to conduct themselves in a respectful, courteous manner, both with the board and fellow citizens. At any time, should any member of the board or any citizen fail to observe this public charge, the chair will ask the offending person to leave the meeting until that individual regains personal control. Should decorum fail to be restored, the chair will recess the meeting until such time that a genuine commitment to the public charge is observed. As a courtesy to others, please turn off cell phones during the meeting. And I will now ask that we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, do we have any agenda adjustments? I will now share the announcements. Neighborhood College now accepting applications. Residents looking to play a more active role in their neighborhoods and the Durham community should apply now for the 2019 Durham Neighborhood College. Applications are being accepted through Friday, July 26th, and space is limited to 30 participants. Area high school students ages 15 and up, as well as Latino residents, are encouraged to apply. And to learn more, you can visit the website that we will have on our county website. That information, also paper applications are available at the Durham County Clerk's Office at 200 East Main Street and at the City Clerk's Office, 101 City Hall Plaza. The city and county are launching the Engage Durham initiative. This initiative ensures that all Durham voices are heard in the future of Durham, the future of Durham is shaped through projects like the Comprehensive Plan, public transit, and trail projects. For more information, please contact Lisa Miller, Senior Urban Designer with the Durham City County Planning Department, lisa.miller at durhamnc.gov, or you can reach her at 919-560-4137, 28270. And another partnership with the city and the county, Innovate Durham, an innovation partnership program. We're turning local government into a laboratory for startups and entrepreneurs. Innovate Durham participants will work with the Durham City and County departments to test, scale, and innovate new ideas and technology. The 12-week partnership program turns the City of Durham and Durham County into a lab to test your ideas, products, and services. The application process for the 2019 cohort closes on July 22nd, 2019. For more information on the program criteria and application process, please visit, again, the website. We'll have that on our website. And you can contact Eric Marsh at emarsh@dconc.gov. Your thoughts are needed on the Eno-Haw Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Durham County, along with Alamance, Orange, and Person counties, are working together to update their plan required to maintain eligibility for future pre- and post-disaster funding from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. A public meeting providing information on the planning process and identified hazards will be held this Thursday, July 11th at 5:30 p.m. at the Whitted Human Services Building located at 300 West Tryon Street, Hillsborough, North Carolina, 27278. And county convenience sites will be closed on July 8th. All 4 of the Durham County convenience sites, Rougemont, Bahama, Redwood, and Parkwood, for staff professional development training, and they will reopen for normal business on July 12th. CHAMPS Grant presents summer meals. Durham Public Schools and the City of Durham invite all children ages 1 through 18 for free meals daily, Monday through Friday, during summer vacation ending August 9th. Parent meals cost $2, but meals are also free for all Durham Housing Authority resident parents. For meal locations, text Food NC to 877-877 or call 1-866-348-6479. For more information, contact Linda Harris at 919-560-2370, extension 26287. And lastly, prepare your 4-year-old for kindergarten. Apply now for pre-K. All Durham residents may apply for free to low-cost, high-quality learning. Your child must be 4 years old by August 31st, 2019 to qualify. Please call 919-403-6960 for more information. So lots of great things happening and great opportunities for people in our community. Any additional announcements, Commissioner Howerton?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have one I particularly would like the community to hear about. This is a book tour by Lawrence M. Drake III. It's called Color Him Father. It's a book about, and it'll be a conversation about fathers that have lost children. One of the things that does not happen very often is the attention to the fathers. Most of the attention tends to go to mothers that have lost children. This is a conversation about, particularly about African American or fathers of color, and to create a space for fathers to talk about their concerns and their pain. And it's not designed to be a pitiful session, as we talk about sometimes when we talk about losing children. But he's going to be here on the 10th at 6:30 at Reese City, and we're inviting the public. I will be facilitating that conversation. And I asked, why didn't they have a male facilitating it? They said they'd rather have me do it. So it starts at 6:30. It'll be at Reese City on Broadway Street. Is it Broadway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Street on Wednesday night at 6:30, and inviting the public to come out and just hear this extraordinary writer and speaker that's going to talk about how he moved through the stages of grief.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, we have our minutes for our June 3rd, 2019 work session up for approval.
Move approval.
Moved by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are unanimously approved. I do want to note that there were a lot of directives in those minutes. I know Drew is not here, but there were a lot in there, a lot of detailed directives. We have citizen comment now. Staff, do we have anyone signed up to speak? No. Okay. Okay, we don't usually have it at this meeting, but this is our only meeting in July. They're usually during our work session. Okay, we have our consent agenda, and I just wanted to see if there are any questions on any items or any items to be pulled from the agenda.
I would move approval.
Second.
I actually had a question, and trying to pull it up. I just had a question about item 19-0337. And was this just extra money that we're moving around? Is that what's happening here?
Madam Commissioner, Commissioners,
Yes.
this is extra money when we bring the main library online for the security officers that'll be added to securing that facility.
Right, but it's being taken out of the cooperative extension budget? Is that right?
No, that is the cooperative extension budget is for added security that they request after hours for programs that they run after hours.
Okay, so this is for cooperative extension. I'm
There's
confused.
both.
Oh, it's
Both.
for both? Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. That's what I was confused about. Okay. All right. So Commissioner Breckow, you moved approval. Did we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Commissioner Howerton seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And all of the consent items are unanimously approved. All right. Some people can leave. Know who were here for those items. Okay, other business. We have an update from staff on the selection process for development partners and discussion of next steps related to the 300 and 500 blocks of East Main Street.
Good evening.
Okay, so we have Marcia here with us from DFI, Perry Mans.
Good evening. I'm Marcia Parrott, Associate Director with the Development Finance Initiative, or DFI. We are a program of the School of Government that provides specialized real estate development finance expertise to local governments. We're excited to be here tonight as we near this really important milestone in the process, which is selecting a development partner for the redevelopment of the 300 and 500 blocks of East Main Street. You probably noticed that a key force behind this project, Sarah Odio, the lead project manager, is not here. She's on vacation, returning, probably paying for really expensive Wi-Fi on an airplane so she can live stream this, but she's sad she can't be here. I'm going to provide a little bit of background on the solicitation process and the evaluation criteria. I'm going to hand it to Perry to make staff's recommendation and then close with some next steps. So the solicitation process. The solicitation for development partners was released in early January this year, distributed widely, and ultimately we received 9 proposals when it closed in April. The county commissioners decided to interview 3 finalists, 3 development teams that are listed here, Brinshaw, Laurel Street, and Wind Companies, and those interviews took place in late June. So here is the evaluation criteria that staff used to evaluate these proposals. This was listed in the solicitation. The guiding public interests, the qualifications and experience of the teams, their ability to meet goals related to minority and women-owned business enterprises, what their references had to say, how they were able to optimize site density, specifically as it related to units of affordable housing, the timeline, their ability to execute within that timeline, the financial and site feasibility, and the inclusion of other amenities like public space or daycare or pre-K. So the public interest, this probably will be one of the last opportunities to recognize these in a setting, so I just want to go through them quickly, because these were really the lens with which staff reviews these proposals, is how well they align with these public interests. Addressing parking needs on the site while also considering the proximity to other modes of transportation as we evolve in the future. Increasing the amount of affordable housing in downtown in a mixed income and multi-generational setting. Providing commercial and service offerings for tenants and workers, and increasing activity along that East Main Street corridor. Efficiently using public investment to maximize public investments. And creating a vibrant urban streetscape with pedestrian scale design. So really proud of these. These were the result of many, many hours of citizens, you all, staff who contributed to these public interests. We really were excited by how we saw these public interests come to life in the proposals. The development teams really took them and ran with them and applied their own creativity and experience, and that was really exciting to see. We're really proud of the quality of the proposals that we received. They are very high caliber, and honestly, we think that any of the three finalists would be an excellent partner for Durham County. So we're thankful especially to you all, to the citizens who helped to shape these public interests and contributed to where we are today, which is in a really great position with the prospect of some great partners. So I'll pass it to Barry.
Sure. So again, Commissioners, good afternoon. Marcia just made a very good point in that all of the three firms that we interviewed, or the three teams that we interviewed, would be great partners with Durham County. This is a good problem to have to make such a critical decision that we have before you. However, in doing our due diligence and holding the interviews after various discussions, follow-up information, the team of Laurel Street Zom Living sort of rose to the top. Here we have their development team listed. They're partnering with Ashley's Corner LLC. They're partnering with Little Diversified and Neighboring Concepts for the architectural design services. Stewart Engineering, obviously for engineering services. The local Banks Law Firm for legal counsel. And the construction team of Weaver Cook, Balfour Beatty, Harmon Construction. And they also mentioned that a local MWBE partner would be determined later, and that partner would provide both project management experience as well as subcontractor, MWBE subcontractor recruitment. So that's one that we will shepherd through that process. This slide is prepared for quick reference to remind you guys what was in the solicitation and what was actually in Laurel Street's proposal. As far as affordable units, 80% AMI and below. The solicitation had 277 units. Laurel Street in their proposal had 305. And there's a breakdown of the 300 block versus the 500 market rate and affordable units. Obviously, all proposals exceeded, the numbers in the solicitation. The total county loan grant, Laurel Street was consistent with the $9.5 million that we had suggested earlier. We've provided a breakdown of the requested loan grant cost per unit at $31,000, and the land purchase, they've estimated at about $2.6 million, of which county staff is in the process of getting appraisals to shore that number up. So Laurel Street Zom highlights, obviously they're a highly qualified team with demonstrated experience in mixed income, mixed use development, and urban and infill settings. They do a significant amount of projects along the East Coast, which was evident in their proposal. And the fact that this team has worked together before, to deliver projects was something that we paid a lot of attention to. They also had a fully funded proposal. Some of the other teams have gaps that were identified. This team did not, and based on the criteria that we had to work with at that time, that was critical. They have a long history of exceeding the MWBE goals. They suggested around 30%. Obviously, the county's goal for MWBE participation is around 25. We always try to, I guess, up the ante, so to speak, when it comes to construction and our capital projects. For example, across the street, we have tracking to be about 36.45%, and we hope to get around or somewhere close to that, with the delivery of these projects. They're committed to securing and nurturing social impact businesses in the 500 block commercial, identifying businesses desired by the community and offering below market rents. They've also committed to identifying a daycare provider for the 300 block, and local development knowledge and experience was also something that rose to the top. The team itself also offers us some efficiencies in the fact that they are working with Durham Housing Authority on their master plan, so there's some research, some due diligence that they've already done around those plans, that questions that we don't have to answer. The construction team of Little and Balfour Beatty delivered the Morgan Street deck across the street, which again offers us some efficiencies because they're familiar with the parking access and revenue control system that the city is using and that the county hopes to mirror to allow us to sync up all of the public-private parking decks downtown in the future. So those were just some highlights of why staff is recommending the team of Laurel Street ZOM. Again, this is just a high-level overview. It's not meant to recognize why we didn't select other teams, but what sort of rose to the top for us as why we're making a recommendation to select this team. So I'll turn it over to Marcia for next steps.
Okay, so here we are in that project timeline with the hope that we can near a decision of the board selecting a preferred partner with that goal of keeping on schedule with construction towards the end of 2020. Next steps, if the board selects their preferred development partner, then we can direct staff to initiate exclusive MOU negotiations. So an MOU is a non-binding agreement. It allows for exclusivity, and it's where the county and each of the development partners outline their requirements and their responsibilities. So all the milestones that they need to reach before the development agreement can be executed. So some examples of those milestones are things like the amount of earnest money, when the development partner will apply for low-income housing tax credits, assumptions from the county like employee parking, the number of employee parking spaces, expectations around community engagement, how they'll deliver financial information and communicate that information to you all. Terry mentioned MWBE goals that can also be outlined, as well as things like their commitments to, for example, identifying a daycare provider. So all of those things are outlined in the MOU with a schedule so that each party moves forward incrementally so that eventually you can get to that development agreement being executed. Of course, that MOU and development agreement will be presented to you all for review by staff, so it will need to be endorsed and approved by you all. Some additional next steps worth mentioning, specifically as it relates to public input. Per your suggestion, we're going to be hopefully hosting a series of Meet the Developer sessions where all of the community members that participated and anyone who wants to attend in the public input process up to this point can get to know these developers and these teams and hopefully make those connections that can make for an even more successful project moving forward. There's, of course, also the city-county design review process, so those are additional opportunities for public input to review those designs as they become more crystallized. And of course, as I mentioned, the MOU and development agreement will be presented, and that will offer a lot of rich detail in terms of the milestones and expectations from here on out. So that's it.
Well, thank you so much for this information. I want to acknowledge, because we have people from all three teams sitting in the audience tonight, and I just want to acknowledge that we had three fantastic partners to work with, all of the teams. I know that there are things that we all were just blown away by every single opportunity that we have for our community. So I really appreciate everybody who's been a part of this process. I know this was a lot of work, a lot of engagement happened um, by a lot of people sitting in this room. And so I really want to acknowledge that. And want to thank staff for all of your work on this. And I just want to open it up now for questions and comments from commissioners. Commissioner Recco.
Well, I want to thank you for bringing this forward tonight. Clearly, it was a robust process, and we do have some excellent candidates, and it is a very tough choice. And in that regard, I mean, one of the other proposers had a grocery store / cafe. And I thought it was going to be an amazing addition to East. The truth is, we have a food desert in that area. We really need a high quality grocery store. And I just want to raise that because when we did stakeholder meetings or when we did public outreach, and you probably held, what, 4 different meetings? 5?
6 total.
6. Okay, 6 different. One of the things that people asked for, and it was right at the top of the list, was a grocery store. So I just want to say that I would hope and expect, and I've talked to staff about this, there still can be changes. And really, the commercial on Main was not defined entirely. That I would like to see some effort made to incorporate a grocery store and even a grocery store that does also serve prepared food. So I wanted to raise that. I also want to generally talk about activation because really none of the 3 groups, the one disappointment I had, because overall I was very impressed with, but I was disappointed with the treatment of the 300 block as it relates to Maine. I don't know if that's because of the affordable housing piece and any limitation. Most what was going to be there was affordable. But I don't know if through a condominium approach or something that we could conceivably get some commercial. Because you look at Main Street from Roxborough going east towards Allston, and think about it. We have such a institutional type street for block after block with very little commercial, etc. And these 2 blocks are such golden opportunities to activate the streetscape. And so I hate to see, I mean, it's great that we're going to get activation on 500, but I hate to see opportunity. So I would challenge the selected group that really we need to think out of the box and try to see if we can activate 300 block more also. It will help with everything. I mean, one of my heroes is Jane Jacobs, if anyone read Death and Life of Great American Cities. But she talks about the fact that more eyes and ears improve safety. And if we get more activity, it's only going to improve the whole way Main Street works and the ambiance, et cetera. So that is something that I really think we need to work further on. And then the other thing I'll just mention is the whole issue of shared parking. Again, none of the groups nailed it on that, in my opinion. One group went maybe the furthest. One group did somewhat of a good job, but I think there's still even room for improvement there. Anyway, it's very important for us to look at this, and there's good data from other cities where they've actually done studies, and maybe that would be something that could be done in some of our larger downtown apartment buildings where we look at utilization during the day. But I've seen studies of in the Washington, D.C. area where the number of empty spaces during the day is so great that actually tenants and owners have collaborated to rent out their space, that because tenants are often paying extra for park, and so this way they offset their parking fee by earning money by renting. But there's data that they use to show that while not every space is going to be available, and there will be times when people are sick or whatever, there you can always count on some average, much lower amount than what they survey for that you could then utilize. So I just wanted to raise that because in the scheme of things, it will save everyone money. Developer and the county, and be more environmentally. So those were my 3 issues that I did want to highlight here, and hope that there's still room that we can work, improve going.
Any other comments? Commissioner Howerton?
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank the staff for this incredible mountain of work that you did. Thanks to staff and their team. You guys have done some incredible work, and this could end up being the project that really highlights Durham County like none other. So I am so appreciative of all the work you've done. I appreciate all the consultants and contractors that put themselves forward for this project, because it took a lot of work, a lot of coordination from different individuals to come and work together. So I'm excited about it happening. It's a shame that things move so slow. It's like government. People always get upset with the government because they want it to move faster. Well, I tell them I'd like to see it move faster too, but that's just not the way it happens. So I'm just excited about the project getting to this point, and just want to say thank you to all the staff, and thanks to all the contractors and participants that have put themselves forward for this particular contract, because I know that it took a lot of work.
And I get more minutes. I was so busy with my concerns, I didn't cite the fact that this is an amazingly wonderful opportunity for us as a community to take these 2 blocks on East Main Street and put mixed-use development rather than just parking deck on these 2 blocks is is very, very important. Have 305 affordable housing units. This will be the biggest infusion of affordable housing probably in the past years more in downtown. And so this is just a wonderful opportunity. And again, if we can get it right with the activation of Main Street, I think we're going to score a home run. Really looking forward to working on this.
Mr. Carter?
Ellen, you said what I was going to say just then, but you said it very well. I was very excited during every one of the three presentations. You all just did a fantastic job, and I really enjoyed being there and getting to hear from each of the teams. I feel like each of you were my top choice at one point. That's how sort of close in the running this has felt to me. But in general, yes, thanks to DFI, you really brought us three excellent proposals. Thanks to Perry and all of our team, and to all the developers who really responded to our invitation to help us achieve our vision. And it is amazing, and when you think about it, that the county's gone from not being in the housing world, that's the city's role, to now being ready to develop 305 affordable housing units. We started out wanting a parking lot. We wanted more parking for staff. And then we wanted to have affordable housing wrapped in the parking decks, along with mixed use. And then we wanted some commercial and retail space. And oh, by the way, could some of it be below market rent? And we wanted a daycare. And we'd actually like a grocery store, too. It feels like we might get all of this. So I hope so. And really, really excited about moving forward with this amazing possibility. I will say one other thing that I really liked about Laurel Street was the diversity of your team. You're here tonight, and the diversity is really inspiring, and it's what we want to be fostering, and especially there's more minority equity in this project. It won't just be with your general contractors. We know that is going to be part of our MOU, but we're excited about the female, African-American female-owned business. And so I just wanted to say that. You did a fantastic job at the presentation too, by the way. Quite dynamic. So that's all I'll say. Very excited. Looking forward to moving forward with the administration's recommendation after a very, very hard choice.
Commissioner Hill?
This is the night where we steal everyone's thunder, I guess. I agree with my colleagues. Want to piggyback on that. All the teams presented outstanding projects, and like Commissioner Carter said, there was a time when each one of you was my favorite. It was a very tight competition, and I am just thrilled that Durham County can boost the amount of affordable housing that we have in Durham, and particularly in downtown Durham. It's good to see that the people that serve us in downtown can now live downtown. I think that's important. So I am thrilled to get to this point, and I am happy that we can move forward. As Commissioner Howerton said, I wish we could move faster, but government is not known for its speed, but we are on the right path, and I look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your comments. I have a few follow-up questions for staff. So related to what Commissioner Recap brought up about, possible changes, Marcia, can you give us an idea at this point, what can we expect in terms of, changes that come out of first of all, the community engagement process? There are going to be things that the community is going to, ideas or feedback that they give our development partners. And, I'm just would like to understand more about how this, I guess I'm thinking of this being still more an evolving iterative process. I think as Commissioner Reckow pointed out, and when you went over the goals that we were trying to achieve, activation of Main Street was really one of those. It was actually expressed 2 different times in those overarching goals. So I do think that it is, again, there were so many great ideas thrown out by all 3 teams. And so we all, I think, fell in love with the grocery store idea. And I think it's not, it was because also community grocery store, and thinking about the location, the synergy between our Health and Human Services building and the fact that we have about 1,600 people a day who come in and out of that building. We have about 600 employees in that building. That's a lot of people who could benefit from from having access to good food and hopefully some affordable food. And then our public health department does a lot of programming around nutrition and cooking. And so, all of us, our minds are going and thinking about all of these different, potential benefits to the community. So just
Yeah.
wondering how do we move forward with something like that? Another team had a great location of the daycare facing the library, which I thought was the best location of all 3 of the projects. So again, looking at things like that, revisiting, how much flexibility is there in terms of revisiting some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. You've heard us say this many times, that the designs will evolve and change, and they will continue to. The MOU will be the process that outlines those specific changes that you want to see. Like, for example, you might ask that the developer rethink how a grocery store might fit into that space, which will have some other impacts on the overall design, or reconfigure the location of a potential daycare to be on the 300 block towards the library. So certainly those are requests and design requests that we can codify in the MOU and work with the developer to see how they evolve. So it will change, but it will be a busy 6 to 9 months, and by the time the development agreement is executed, we should have some more clarity about the final program. That said, there's still a lot of possibilities in terms of tenants. You've heard us say this, it's very early to do tenant selection. We are still several years away from tenant selection, but that is an opportunity. That means that we do have plenty of time for the development partner to cultivate relationships with the potential grocery store tenant, with daycare tenants, and work with them to figure out how to put them in the site. With the solicitation process, we laid out the fundamentals of what we need to see in the program and what the values are, but there's still some flexibility to keep refining that and working together now that the development team is selected to really make that a reality and put that kind of pencil to ink on paper. So changes will occur. I think the development team is going to be really eagerly expecting your feedback from the public, and then we're going to move quickly to implement those changes and create a final design that takes into account some of these recommendations.
Okay. And again, the idea with the library the daycare facing the library, it was the same thing. People were excited about the idea of the opportunities for the daycare to use the resources at the library, walk across the street, and the programming that's at the library. So again, thinking about the relationship of the other existing county employees, services, programs, other things happening in the community. And that was actually some of the great ideas that came out, and I hope we'll have more of that, thinking about partnerships with urban ministries, and I also want to encourage all of the local partners that I see sitting out in this audience. I encourage you to get involved with this, still get involved with this project. Hopefully there are opportunities as well for that. Going back to that, can you go back to that timeline slide? So I guess we're at the due diligence period and crossing over into the MOU negotiations. So Can you tell us a little bit more about what is planned related to community engagement? Because I think that should start happening very quickly.
Yep.
Um,
We anticipate having community engagement before the end of the summer. Those meet the developer sessions that I mentioned. We plan to hold several of those sessions in August so that the development team can start making those connections, networking, and also receive that feedback from the community as soon as possible. Because that feedback will help to inform the milestones that you'll set forward in that MOU agreement. So that's the community engagement that will occur in the next month, really, the next couple of months through the MOU negotiation period. Then eventually there will inherently be additional opportunities for public engagement. They're already built into the design review process that the city county has in place. So as the plans become refined and they're submitted for review, there is inherently a process for public review. But we can also add in as much public engagement and forms of it as you all would like. So we can certainly go above and beyond what we've already proposed here. And of course, we're going to be keeping that website, the dconc.gov/emainst, up to date that has all of this information too, so that the public can stay informed.
Well, I would just say in terms of the public engagement that we really think about making that accessible, different, times of the day, locations, thinking about some of the different stakeholder groups that should definitely be reached out to. I mean, even Durham County employees is an obvious one. We've got people, who come in and out of, Health and Human Services and CJRC and Urban Ministries, the library, and then the churches, but also the groups that are really concerned about affordable housing. I just, think we can think very broadly about making sure that we give opportunities. And then for people who can't attend meetings, I think, doing things online, having that as well for giving people feedback.
I have something
Yeah.
from my notes with the interview with Laurel Street where they said that they would expect to meet with users and residents downtown, and they want to engage the community, and that's a goal. When they invest in a place, they're there to stay. So that's certainly something that they relayed as part of their interview as well.
Right.
That was an important.
And they may have their own, you may all have your own strategies
Right.
that you've had success with other places as well.
Well, now they talked about working with the neighborhood, East Durham neighborhood, as far as like branding the development. I thought that was an interesting use of the term, but that would require some really authentic
Yes.
community outreach.
Yes, yeah. So, well, anyway, this definitely feels like a huge milestone for us to have staff recommend a partner for us to start taking the next steps with. I, again, as everyone else has acknowledged, that this is a monumental project for Durham County government and for our community. And I'm really proud of the process that we have been trying to create as we go forward, because we've never done anything like this before. And just all of the possibilities for benefits to our community is very exciting. And I think all of the developer teams acknowledged that, and they all have wide-ranging experience at the national level, that this is very unusual, what we are doing in Durham County, that it's unusual for a county to be engaged with affordable housing and these other community goals. So I do want to make sure we recognize that. Yes, Commissioner Howerton.
Just one quick question. The community engagement, could you let us know what areas that you will be participating, what communities? So that if it's an area that we think that hasn't been touched upon, we can make sure that we recommend that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Another quick question,
Yes.
sorry. That was
Yes,
that
go
lovely
ahead.
summary, and now we're throwing more technical
No,
questions in
okay.
again. Sorry about that. But
okay.
like Ellen mentioned, the parking, and none of these county subsidies address parking yet, and so
Mhm.
when will we start talking about that more? That'll be another big chunk of change from the county. And just, I am too hopeful that we'll be able to have some percentage of shared parking with market rate units. So we can't share with the affordable units, of course, but, and also, when will we know if we have to build one per unit, affordable unit, or more than one per affordable unit?
So that will be another thing outlined in the MOU is
Okay.
requesting that waiver and when they'll apply for tax credits and when they'll know if they receive that waiver. But we can expect that Laurel Street will request the waiver to reduce the parking requirement. And shared parking is also a really important value to Laurel Street. We know we discussed that with them in the interviews. When will we start talking about parking? Tonight, tomorrow, very soon? I know that they're working on the employee parking study, and those numbers should be finalized soon. So we're gathering all those key inputs to start ironing out the details around parking, which is a really important next step, as you mentioned.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Recco.
I have one more follow-up question. It's a little misleading, that last purple line with the construction starting in the last fourth quarter of 2020. When, if you continued that line out, when can we possibly expect for the construction to be done? Has that
Commissioner, that's a very tough question to answer right now. Again, we have to look at the displacement of county staff at that 500 block as well as the 300 block parking lots. So we need to get a developer on board, get the programming finalized, and sort of take a deeper dive into that before we can really answer some of those questions.
probably, though, a couple more years? I just didn't want
Absolutely.
people to
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that
Right.
all of a sudden this project was going to go up in a 3-month.
No.
Point well taken. It will not be fully delivered by the end
That's
of
right.
2020. You're right. It's a
Okay.
long purple line.
A
off
long
the chart.
purple line.
Yep.
We get that with the main library. So when
Right.
is the library going to be open? I do also want to note, there was a big gathering downtown with Durham Can recently, and I think it's a real priority for our community, not only to have affordable housing, but to have affordable housing downtown. And again, I want to emphasize, I think, the critical role that the county has played in the revitalization of downtown Durham, and now we want to play a role in making sure that downtown Durham is a place for everybody in our community, and that is really vital for the future of Durham, that we have a diverse downtown that is part of being a thriving city. So, all right, on to the next steps, and thank you again for everyone.
They need to vote on this.
And okay, are we just giving staff guidance, or do we vote?
We need to take action on this.
Okay.
Staff is recommending you authorize the county manager to enter negotiations with the team of Laurel Street Zom Living. So,
Okay, so we're authorizing the county manager to work with Laurel Street and Zom, and can I have a
I would so move.
Second.
move by Commissioner Recco, seconded by Commissioner Howerton? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion is unanimously approved. Okay. Thank you, everyone. All right. We now have a review and endorsement, hopefully, of another big plan. The next steps towards an evolving new Durham County Transit Plan process. And we have Bill Judge with us from Durham City of Transportation, Catherine Eggleston from Go Triangle, and Patrick Young, Durham City County Planning Director.
Madam Chair, before they start, I'd want to recognize a former county commissioner, former chair of the board in the audience, Bill Bell. Welcome.
Bill.
Welcome.
And former mayor.
And former mayor.
Former mayor, but he's in the county house.
Okay.
Mentioning his county county bona fide.
Right, well, first you get acknowledged as a former county commissioner before mayor, okay? Okay. All right, well, thank you for being here. And I'll let you take it from here, Patrick.
Good evening, Chair Jacobs and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to present an overview of a proposal regarding the project approach, the project management team, and the timeline for the Durham County Transit Plan update. We will not get in depth into content tonight, but part of what you'll hear tonight is a commitment to excellent, continuous, we use the term relentless communication about the development and content of this over the next several months and over the next year or so as we develop the plan. So as Chair Jacobs recognized, I do want to recognize Chief Development Officer of Go Triangle, Catherine Eggleston, is with us here tonight, and Interim Transportation Director for the City of Durham, Bill Judge. A big part of the group that developed this, which you're going to see tonight, was John Hodges-Koppel, the Planning Director of Triangle JCOG, and Chief of Staff Drew Cummings, who's represented the county administration. It's been a great team to work with. I'll talk more about that as I proceed. They are on vacation tonight and couldn't be here. So, as each of you know, the Durham County Transit Plan is a really important document that helps, among other things, direct the allocation of Durham County transit tax proceeds. We believe, the team that's with you tonight, that this can also really help set a sustainable and effective vision for transit throughout the community and throughout the region. The 2017 plan was a great plan. It was a joint plan with Orange County, but it was focused around delivery of the Durham Orange Light Rail Transit project. There are other priorities in it, all of which will be reflected and considered in the transit plan update. But the focus was the Durham Orange Light Rail Transit project, and of course that's been discontinued. So we are recommending that there be an update to the transit plan to reflect the availability of funds for other projects and other priorities. What I'll emphasize here is that Durham County, that you all as the Board of Commissioners are the lead partner in in the transit plan. You all have the authority to direct allocation of the transit tax money, but we do want to use this opportunity to kind of reground and reestablish and diversify and strengthen some of the partnerships from the different transit providers and transit planning agencies in the region to make sure that we identify the appropriate range of projects, and if there are any impediments or concerns about projects, identifying those early in the process and making sure that they get resolved so we can effectively implement transit projects. Another key point before I go into our proposal is we are going to be proposing a transit plan that we want to bring to you all for final approval by next November in 2020 at the latest. But there will be many key funding deadlines and decisions that have to be made in advance of that. So we want to use the same planning process to be a vehicle to collaborate and communicate consistently and frequently with you all about those interim deadlines and decisions and make sure that you have high quality information as you make those decisions. So what we're recommending to you tonight, and then we would like your endorsement after we answer any questions you all have, is that we reconstitute what is called the staff working group. The staff working group is a group representing the county, Go Triangle, and the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or MPO, that makes recommendations to the Go Triangle board, to the MPO board, and most importantly to you all in transit plan update. That group has been effective, but we want to grow that group to include the city of Durham because they are a key transit provider. We also want to make sure that Triangle JCOG and the MPO continue to have seats at the table, and that the county and the Go Triangle are represented. Durham County, City County Planning, our department has agreed to be project manager and convener. We think that that will help ensure alignment with our comprehensive land use plan that we're kicking off, that you all have heard about recently, in terms of making sure that we do a robust engagement process, which we're committed to with the comprehensive plan. I'll talk more about that in a minute, but also that there's a close alignment between our proposed land uses and transit. without a major fixed guideway throughout the community like the light rail system, that is more important than ever. Another thing I'll say about that is that certainly the county or the MPO or other agencies could take over that leadership and may well do so in the future, but we wanted to help stand this up and get this group going. In fact, we've already met informally and begun the process of endorsing this approach that you're hearing about tonight. So there's 6 steps that we're recommending that would be, I guess, what we call important preliminary steps. And then there's the 7th step is the plan development. And I'll spend just a few minutes on each of those. You heard me talk about communicating relentlessly. I think we feel that as we look at reestablishing or establishing new priorities in the absence of the light rail project, that this continuous two-way consistent communication, not just with you all as the lead partner and the most important partner, but with the other partners, the City Council, the MPO Board, and Go Triangle. So we would have at each of your meetings, we would have a either written or staff update with details about where we're at in the plan development, get feedback from you all to make sure that we are not reflecting your priorities and needs, and make sure that you know where we're at in the development process. I mentioned earlier what we're using the term pipeline items. Pipeline items are plans and projects that are already underway or that there are deadlines in the near future. And there are a number of those, and they're important ones. The commuter rail transit project is going to have some interim deadlines. What's called spot prioritization, which is essentially getting in line for state funding for major transit investments, are 2 examples, and there are other examples. So pending, if we get you all's endorsement of this approach with any modifications you see fit tonight, we're going to go to the Go Triangle Board on July 24th. There's a typo on the slide there, and I apologize for that. City Council on August 8th, and the MPO Board on August 14th to get their endorsement of this approach. So the interlocal agreements, the governance agreements between the county and some of our partners identify what I alluded to earlier as the staff working group. We are working, Go Triangle has agreed to be a lead on working to make some recommended changes to that portion of the interlocal agreement so that we can have this expanded team have that role of being the technical staff group that that collaborates together, shares information, works with the community to get engagement, and makes recommendations to you all and the other bodies in terms of transit agreement. Again, as I've said a couple times already, and I won't keep repeating it, is just making sure all those partners are talking continuously, openly, and meeting frequently, and working closely together is going to be really important to success. So modifying the governance agreements to give that group the necessary portfolio to make those recommendations to you all would be a very early step. A second, kind of a 2A and 2B, and these are very important, and I've alluded to them a couple times as well already, is what we're calling existing conditions assessment, where we create some detailed information about the legal authority and funding for transit improvements, existing transit services, and kind of the trade-offs and options regarding transit services. We may get an outside consultant that has some expertise in communicating those and try to kick that off in the very near future. But essentially creating a set of basic facts, both for you all and for the community, that we can all work off of and speak from. What does it take to buy a new bus? What does it take to run a new route? Fundamental information so that everybody understands what's involved with the changes or to the transit plan. And also going into great detail about those interim pieces that need decisions prior to the anticipated plan delivery date of November 2020. We would use this same group and the same process to identify potentially high priority, high value investments that could be made earlier, maybe even in the next 6 to 12 months. And most importantly, to make sure that you'll have the information you need on those interim decisions that are going to be made before the plan's developed. So this group would make sure those were characterized and brought to you timely in advance of the decision points. So you heard the chair talk about the Engage Durham process and the announcements earlier in the meeting. Really excited about this. This is the process that we initially started to ensure that there was high quality, really, I think, groundbreaking, innovative engagement with the community, meeting people where they are, having peer-to-peer communication between trusted neighbors, community members, community groups, and individuals to get meaningful, authentic feedback on our comprehensive land use plan. We want to use that same process to get feedback on transit. Transit and land use are intimately tied together. They work hand in glove. And using that same set of partnerships and process with some specialized outreach and events that would really focus in on existing transit users. Go Triangle is going to help us with that, and key asset partners such as the NCCU and Duke University that have significant trip-ins as the places where people want to go, is going to also be part of that engagement process. Another thing this group will do over the next several months is develop a detailed scope and identify the needed plan, development roles, and resources for the plan. Each of the partners that I introduced earlier, and that are two of which are sitting here at the table with me, have different strengths and different resources. And what we would want to do is clarify roles and responsibilities, and that each partner would be bringing deliverables. The planning department would be, of course, managing that process, but the partners would be doing a lot of the work, and we've begun that process of assessing those already. And then by no later than November, for about 12 months, we would want to do the detailed plan development. We may involve consulting assistance based on that assessment I mentioned on the last slide, if there are gaps in resources or competencies between the different partner groups. But we want to make sure that this is done quickly, and that there's really high-quality communication throughout the process so that you all have many, many opportunities to provide guidance, direction, feedback, and express any concerns that are brought up. And we're going to want to make that same availability to the other three boards, but you all are the lead agency, so that's why we come to you first. So we'll be happy to take any questions or concerns or comments, and thank you all for this opportunity again.
Well, thank you, Patrick. And I know if Drew was here, he would be sitting with you. And if John Hodges-Koppel was here, he would be sitting here as well. So I think that really represents the partnership between the county, city, Go Triangle. I guess Aaron Kane should be here too, MPO.
He's also on vacation.
On vacation. So we have half of the partners who are on vacation. But I think the point is that the approach that we're taking is to the key stakeholders together to make sure that we have a really strong plan and a really strong process. So thank you I want to say thank you for your leadership on this, Patrick, as you are also launching a huge initiative, the comprehensive, land use plan revision, but it really does make sense to tie our transit plan in with these efforts. And so we thank you for all of your efforts, and congratulations, Catherine, on your new position with Go Triangle being head of capital projects. And comments, Commissioner Howerton.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for this report. I have a couple of questions, and this may not be for you, I'm not sure. One of my questions is the report, is there a report that will show what's happening to the finances, given that the project is not going on right now? What's happening in the interim with the dollars? Can we get a report?
Sure. So Go Triangle is the fiduciary for the money, so I'll let Catherine maybe speak to that.
Sure. Our finance department has been developing reports monthly on the closeout expenses for the light rail project. They're working to develop the year-end statement now, and we have a forecast for the fiscal year 2020, the year that we just began on July 1st. We have a forecast for that was adopted by the Go Triangle board at their June meeting, so we can certainly provide that to you.
That would be great to get. And my other question, is to propose changes we have the proposed changes by November 1st of this year. As far as the budget amendment, will we have that by November of 2019?
So I may turn this over to Catherine as well. There's been a recommendation made to and I'm losing track of where the status exactly that is in terms of expenditures for the current fiscal year. That's been adopted, I believe, by the Go Triangle Board. I'll let you.
That's correct. So the Go Triangle Board at their June meeting adopted the FY20 work plan for services and capital expenditures from the Durham County tax revenues for the upcoming year, this July 1st that just passed through June 30th of 2020.
But there was a caveat that we had.
Correct.
Right. So yeah.
Essentially, Drew Cummings and
Travis
Myron from Orange who were reviewing the numbers, and they still had questions. And so there was an additional statement added to the budget that calls for continued dialogue and reconciliation that will occur hopefully by November 1 to answer it.
Right, and the status of those meetings, we had two initial meetings, one with Travis Marion of Orange, one with Drew Cummings of Durham. In the last 2 weeks, our general counsel had those meetings, and then we have upcoming meetings in the next few weeks. We're meeting with Bill this week to talk about the Durham project, the status of all of those projects, and begin these conversations about the appropriate sponsor going forward.
And we'll get copies of that report.
Absolutely, we plan to keep you all up to date.
Thank you.
So just to put a bow on that, I think it's a great question. There's the areas that Commissioner Reckow and that Catherine alluded to, things like who's the best partner to do the service delivery on the bus stops, that were very specific concerns that were adopted with the budget. I think also what we're committed to do, as I tried to briefly allude to in my comments earlier, was look and see as a team whether we think there's a series of high-value, lower-cost items that we could amend the current year budget and try to get implemented as sooner as possible and prior to the plan development. That could be part of that November update.
There are questions? Commissioner Carter.
Well, this is really big, just like the comp plan is really big. You know, as our population grows and expands, how we're going to use our land and how we're going to move people around. So I'm glad we have such great people at the helm. I feel like my question's a little bit like Brenda's maybe. So, you know, clearly we're going to be continuing to do lots of things around transit until we have a new plan in 2020. What plan are we following until then?
Right, so there's an adopted plan that was adopted in 2017 that did have other projects and priorities in it, but of course the largest priority at that time was the light rail project. So hence the need, our recommendation for the update. But we're still using that as a guidance to set the priorities that were in the FY20 budget that was just adopted, with the caveats that Commissioner Reckow alluded to.
And then you mentioned the pipeline assessment, so those things are ongoing. But like, what if now that we have all the, you know, this large pot of money that we're not spending on the light rail, what if there was another transit project that we wanted to implement and we're going to be spending money on something that's in the pipeline and it might push this other project out of the way or make it impossible to do? I don't know. Is that part of the condition assessment or whatever, where you mentioned trade-offs and options regarding transit services?
It is, and that's why I went back to this slide. I think that these are the really critical pieces that we want to bring back to you in the very near future, this fall, to say, here's what the current plan calls for, here's what we're spending our money on, here are the sources of funds, here are some broad set of options, here are decisions that need to be made in advance of the proposed plan development late next year. And I think all of those will work together and inform each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Do you think that, some of those trade-offs and options that will come forward at that time as part of this condition assessment will be what we might do along the alignment where the light rail would have been, instead?
I think that would be part of it. I think what we'd like to do, my team members can speak up here, but maybe pull the lens out a little bit in terms of looking at things like ridership versus coverage. What are our priorities in terms of transit? Regional versus intra-Durham. They're not mutually exclusive, but making sure we frame out the costs and consequences of the different relative weights on different focuses.
Okay. Thank you. Good answer. I'm really excited that, and basically I think this is a really good proposal for how we're going to be doing this work going forward, and I'm glad to see it. I was wondering what we were going to do, and thanks to the commissioners who've been really involved in this, because I know you've been working hard on it along with staff. And I think the engagement plan for the comp plan is really solid and strong and creative and feels authentic, and I'm glad that we're going to be using that same engagement plan for this.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you recognized Commissioners Jacobs and Reckow gave us some really valuable feedback on this as your MPO and Go Triangle representatives. We incorporated a lot of that in what you see here tonight.
All right, thank you. So I think that, oh, yeah, Commissioner Racco, go ahead.
Okay. I just thank you. We've gotten a lot of thanks for the work putting this together. I just want to make one small correction, Patrick. The plan that we're amending wasn't a joint plan. We had the joint project, but it was a separate town print. The original plan back in 2011, a separate plan. It's just a fine point, but for the public to know, the other thing I wanted to clarify, because I saw a news story, one of the TV stations saw our agenda, and they ran a story about us discussing tonight a more Durham-centric plan. And I just want to clarify that, because while the plan is going to be led by the city county planning department, it may be perceived, and we're going to build off our comprehensive planning process, and we're going to have very strong community engagement. I certainly hope and expect that we will be focusing on the needs of our Durham residents, but also about regional connection. That this isn't Durham as an island. This is about making the connections that we need to make across the region, because every day we know that 120,000 people commute into Durham. And so the congestion on our roads is caused by a lot of people commuting in to get great jobs that we have in Durham. And so we need to take that into account with our plan, because it's very important. And then we have lots of Durham residents going down to going to Orange County for jobs and going to Wake County and other places. So people are on the move by many directions, and we have to make sure that we help them get where they want to go. And in that regard, I just felt like, and I hope this is just a case, you said including, under existing conditions assessment, my thinking would be, obviously we need updated numbers on things like our traffic, our road conditions, our congestion, where people are commuting from, generally existing transit ridership, all of that play in to then assessing what are the greatest needs in terms of what we do. So I wanted to emphasize. And you mentioned the engagement of our citizens. You mentioned reaching out to of our institutional partners, very important also. But we can't also forget the business community and basically major employers, because one of them. I know when we do the surveys on at least both triangle buses, one of the main reasons people are riding our buses to get to work. So, working with our employers, I see the Chamber of Commerce reps here. It's very important that we hear from all of our key stakeholders as we engage in this. So I think, as I say, you've got a great template, and I do think that some thought needs to be given because Orange is going to be undertaking a similar process, and where and how we interface so that those connecting links do get made. I've heard from some Orange leaders about that. They're a little concerned that because we have the commuter rail project, which definitely ties us away, but I pointed out to them we're also studying going west towards Orange with the planning work that's underway on commuter rail as we speak. They are still concerned that we're not treating this without thinking about our region, and I assured them that I certainly didn't that was going to happen, but I think it's important for us to think about the ways that and I guess the staff work group might be a great approach, and the MPO, of course, is a great connecting link since it serves both Durham and Orange. But as I say, being very planful so that we're not having to go back later and make sure that we've got that regional plan. So those are my comments. Look forward to the work ahead.
Yes, Commissioner Hill.
Thank you. When we reach out to the community for these plans for transit, new plans for transit, I hope that we do reach out to the African American community, working class community, and the Spanish speaking community. I think it's imperative that we make sure that everyone feels that they're involved and engaged in this process. So I hope that that's considered when we move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'm sorry actually that you haven't put up the other two. Do you have the other slides in here that you had given us as part of our agenda materials? Okay, well, I think it's, I guess, important that there are there is another document that that is part of our agenda packet.
Yeah.
That is really helpful and actually addresses a lot of the things that have come up, and basically that the framework, there are 6 things that are laid out as critical for the framework, and it does talk about the importance of working with both Wake and Orange counties, that we strengthen the foundation and quality of existing bus service, that we are aligning the transit plan with our comprehensive land use plan, that we have collaboration that's technical between all of the public agencies, but also meaningful engagement with key stakeholders and partners, and that includes the community. And there's actually a whole list of who, important community stakeholders, people like, who've been very involved in the transit plan, like the Durham Can and the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit and, all the different groups that have been engaged. But anyway, I want to make sure that people know that there is a whole other document and has a timeline when different things are going to happen, and it really clearly defines the activity, the purpose, the roles, of each of these groups. So there's a lot of thinking that has gone into really trying to carefully craft this, and I think that we want this to be successful. I think we've all learned a lot from what we've done, and we want to learn from the past and build on that foundation. And at the heart of this is about mobility, and it's about figuring out how to get people where they need to go so that they can have a better quality of life. That's what we're talking about here. Connecting people in our community to jobs, to housing, to wages where they can support themselves, education, healthcare. And I think our community, one of the benefits is that people are ready to be engaged. They've learned so much from the light rail project. I think people's level of interest and knowledge this is a great time to be doing this. But, we can't really talk about transit without talking about affordable housing, because there's no point in having affordable housing if people are living somewhere where they're dependent on a car that they don't have to get to a job where they can pay for their housing. And if it's not a good paying job, then, we're not really succeeding with our vision of shared prosperity. So again, we have to, I think, really make sure we are always connecting that what this is all about: housing, jobs, being able to get to education, healthcare, and I just hope that we'll keep that all at the forefront. And I agree with what Commissioner Reckow said, that this is not going to be a Durham-centric plan. This is, at the end of the day, is going to be a mobility plan for people in Durham and for our region, because we are a region. And I don't know, it's probably about, you remember, is it about half the people in Durham that leave every day to go to jobs other places? So we can't build a wall around ourselves. And Catherine, related to Commissioner Howerton's question, I think it would be good to have Go Triangle come and give us an update on just where we are right now. Or I don't know, who would be the entity to come at this point? What makes sense? Should it be everyone, or for you to come just to kind of give us an overview, I think, of what is in our current plan that we are moving forward with? Because there's a lot of things related to buses and the commuter rail, and what the budget is, who's doing what. So when do you think it makes sense, and who should do that?
I think that we can work together here to identify the appropriate time to bring an update on the pipeline that's been identified and those engagement points that we expect on that.
Okay, so I think probably, sooner rather than later, for you all to come back and at least bring everybody up to speed would be great.
And I have one more
Yes.
thing I want to add to what my colleague said, talking about the community and the diversity of this community. One of the, and we can take it back to Go Triangle, but I'll just keep plugging it. The Board of Directors. Last time we had somebody on that Board of Directors that looked like me was Mayor Bell. We cannot have the decision makers not represent this community. So I hear you have staff, but they're not the ones that make the final decision. So I'm talking about the decision makers. And I've talked about this before. I brought it to my board, and I brought it to Go Triangle. I won't let that go, because it doesn't represent the people that we're talking about when they're not represented at the table.
Thank you. And one different approach is there is going to be a lot of different people at the table as well, making these decisions. So,
Well, what I'm talking about is not just anybody at the table. You need people, someone in there has their expertise that can really be a part of the conversation.
all right. Well, thank you. Thank you again. And I think, I guess, are we just supposed to give our,
Go forth and conquer.
our
We didn't think it was necessary for a formal resolution, and just to make sure that you all are comfortable with the process we've recommended, and if you have any major modifications or concerns with it. Otherwise, the formal endorsement will be when we bring back the revised interlocal that recognizes this group and has a little more substance to the process. And I want to thank each of you for your very helpful comments. I want to take just a moment to do two things. Thank you very much for your comments. In the interest of you all's time, I wanted to provide an overview, but that framework document that Chair Jacobs referred to is really great. It does provide much more detail on the proposed approach. This team has been great, and including the folks that aren't here tonight, really collaborative, and you all's feedback tonight has really helped us and will help clarify our work, and we'll bring you back an update in the very near future.
let's talk about the county management, transportation position. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that I met with Congressman David Price this morning. He wanted a briefing on where things were with transit and was very interested in the fact that we are starting an update of our transit plan. And he's very interested in staying informed on everything that we're doing. He wants to help out as much as possible. Anytime we can bring forward a small start or a new start or whatever. So he's still totally committed to helping this region out with our mobility and transit. So as we develop things, I guess I'm going to share out the document tonight meeting. As I say, he really is all over it and wants to expand the. I'll be sharing these documents, but we should look for ways to communicate with these stakeholders regularly throughout the process.
And I'll just echo that because I met with him this afternoon. And Tracy Levitt is going to be taking on the role of his key staff person related to transportation. So she would be a really good direct contact. And so everything really could just be shared with her. But I want to echo what Commissioner Reckow said, is that he is a huge partner, and as chair of the Housing and Transportation Committee for the Appropriations Committee in Congress is significant. So, all right. Well, thank you so much again, and you have our blessings. Okay, so board and commission appointments. I think we've I have a question, though. Related to the Board of Adjustment, I know we're going to have a conversation about ABC board kind of recommended backgrounds and things like that. I mean, we do that for certain positions, like for, you know, the Environmental Affairs Board, it's an engineering position. Related to the Board of Adjustment, do we put down as a description or requirement that people have certain skills, expertise, or background related to that? I can't hear you, Macia.
There weren't certain requirements, but the applications were forwarded to the staff for them to review it, and
So we don't designate having certain,
we do not.
okay. I guess that's another board. I know we're looking at ABC board, but it feels to me like that's a kind of board that you would need to have certain skills for the kinds of decisions that people are making. Is that not? I mean, I guess I would be interested in knowing what other counties do related to that.
Okay.
We can look into that.
Yeah, because, you know, it just came to mind when I was, because we only have 2 applicants for these positions, and it occurred to me when I was looking at that
Okay.
board. Okay,
The biggest thing about the Board of Adjustment is that's quasi-judicial.
right,
And just having a basic understanding of the significance of that, I think is helpful.
Yeah,
Now,
I just-
people can be trained on how
Right.
to do that, so you don't need to be
Yeah.
a lawyer or anything
Yeah.
like that to do it.
right. So if you could come back to us, I know we're going to talk about ABC, but I think that it seems like certain boards, you know, a lot of our boards, we do look at background and even have designated expertise for certain positions. So, County Attorney Seiler, did you want to just introduce this about the proposal about the language for the ABC board, or?
Yeah, right after.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, the information that you've been provided is the brainchild of Drew Cummings. I think he must have heard your conversation about some of the backgrounds and experience that you were looking for, as it relates to your ABC board members. I think the information that we received from Mecklenburg County is an excellent example of what you can do to, certainly when you advertise for these positions with the ABC board, you can definitely include information where you're trying to solicit people from a particular background, such as business, et cetera. So I really like the way that Mecklenburg County has done it, and I would encourage you to implement something like that.
Okay,
Now, I do want to be specific about one thing. So if you take a look at the information you were just given, there's a section there that talks about purpose. It's a pretty short paragraph. And then it goes into more of a discussion about the qualifications for the candidates who will be the eventual board members. Check with your clerk's office, because I think that you have a little preamble or description for each of your 43 boards and commissions that has a statement about what that particular board does. So that entire thing that Drew gave you would be a lot more than just the description of what the board does. What Drew provided you also includes qualifications for the board members, which I think it would be appropriate to include that when you're advertising in the newspapers and maybe when you're advertising online. But for all your other boards and commissions, you have a short narrative about what that particular board does.
okay. So, do we need to formally adopt
No.
this or just give any direction now?
They were going to.
Okay. So, Maceo, could you come back using this with some proposed language that we can discuss at our August work session then? Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I need a first. August the
Move that we use for rec health from the August 12th meeting.
Right, you got it.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is unanimously approved.
Thank
All right. How do you count?
This is me. I scribbled.
So it looks like for Board of Adjustment, you had is another. You didn't, oh, you didn't tell me that, because this was. Just, they took it. Madam Chair, we got the results of your votes. Ready? For the Board of Adjustment, you had 2 vacant positions, but you only got a majority for one of the positions. Therefore, you've selected Tisha Wymore. For the Convention Center Authority, you could select one person. You've selected Richard Ford. For the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee, you could select one person. You've selected Deborah Williams. For the Environmental Affairs Board, you could select one person. You've selected Rashmi Jalakar. For the Homeless Services Advisory Committee, you could select one person. You've selected Ryan Berman. For the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, you could select 4 individuals. You've selected Dwayne Green, Kevin McIver, Chanel McInnes, and Leah Selvey. For the Library Board of Trustees, you could select 2 persons. You've selected Sandra Chambers and Willis Wichard. For the Planning Commission, you could select 2 individuals. You've selected David Lowe and Scott McIver. For the Women's Commission, you could select 6 persons. You've selected Aquarius Anderson, Vivian Slade, Kimberly Cameron, Elizabeth Morell, Jessica Slice, and Brianna Van Delkelenberg. For the Workforce Development Board, you can select one person, and you've selected Natalia Rice. That
Okay,
concludes your
thank you. Okay, we are now, the board is requested to adjourn to closed session to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the public body in negotiations pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A4. Moved by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Commissioner Hill. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're unanimously adjourned to closed session.
For me? I gotta stop in the office first.
So you go in one room and here it's cold. We have adjourned from closed session and given direction to staff. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Howerton. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Unanimously adjourned.
All right.
All right.